In this episode, we're going to look at the Vantrue model N1 Pro dash camera. This is a 1080p dash camera that will record everything that's happening in front of your car, and it'll support up to 64 gigs of memory. We're going to put this unit through its paces and try it out under different lighting conditions and see how well it performs. Let's take a look at the unit itself. So as I break open the seal, we'll see what accessories come with the unit. I would expect it's the normal stuff: the power cable, the suction cup, and the camera. Unbox it here. Comes in a nice double box. And the first thing we find is we've got our owner's manual, nicely packed in top. And it explains the different features of the camera. And the user manual. We find the camera itself. And then the accessory pack. The accessory pack has two power cables. One power cable to power the camera from a USB source, and the other one to power it from your cigarette adapter in your car. So if we look at the specifications, the camera will take anywhere from an 8 gigabyte to a 64 gigabyte memory card. They recommend a speed class of 10 or higher because this is an HD camera. And they want you to format the memory card in the camera, which is pretty standard. There are two USB ports, one on the camera itself, the other one is on the side of the suction cup base here. So you can leave this connected in your car and just remove the camera. Just thumbing through the installation manual, and then we'll go through the menus in a bit here. Our resolution can be set to 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames, or the lower resolution 1280 by 720 at 30. Loop recording is default for 3 minutes per clip, but you can select it between 1, 3, and 5 minutes or off. It's got a G sensor in it too, so that will lock the files in the event of an accident. You can turn the audio on and off, and default or parking mode, where you can have it record when you're parked using the battery. And you can set the timestamp, rotate the display, time lapse, power off, delay, etc. This could all be set. We'll go through this when I get the camera plugged in here in the shop. So I've got the camera powered up just using my power bank. So we can go through some of the menus on this unit. So if I press the power button, the camera will power up. I haven't put my SD card in it yet, so it's probably going to prompt me to install an SD card. Yeah, so if I press the power key here, that becomes a menu key. Record setup, system setup, GPS setup. So this has a GPS that would be mounted in the suction cup base. So we go to GPS setup. Okay, you can have GPS on or off. You can have speed unit in miles per hour or kilometers per hour. And go back. Files, record setup, system setup. System setup, we can select the language, we can select the format, the SD card, set the time and date. So let's do that. So 2018, it's now 7 month, so 7:30, and the time is 11 o'clock, so 2300 hours, or close enough. Good enough. And we'll have the month, the date displayed, year, month, and date, which is good enough. Auto LCD, you can have it turned off or set it for 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 3 minutes. The device sound, that's just your beep when you're changing anything. Non-use auto power off, so it'll shut off automatically. You can keep the camera running constantly if you want to record even when your power's off, until your battery goes dead. or for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Frequency, this is 50 hertz or 60 hertz depending on what country you're in. That's so that the lights, street lights and stuff won't strobe. System info is going to display the version of software, and then of course that'll take you back to the default settings. We go back from system setup to record setup. Here's where we can select the recording. Resolution, 1920 or 1280 by 720. So 1920 by 1080 is your 1080p, which is give you the best quality. Loop recording, you can set it to 1, 3, or 5 minutes. The G sensor, this is for the shock sensor, low, medium, or high settings. Audio recording, you can turn your audio on or off. Parking mode, if you turn the parking mode on, it will record when the power is off, as long as it's got power. Number plate, this is where you would put your own ID into here if you wanted to use it. And stamp, you can have your date and time stamp. This is where you can turn everything on and off. So you can put all the information on screen, or you can turn that information off. Some people like to have it on because it'll give them a timestamp. This could work against you though. If you have your speed, for example, stamped onto the video, and you were trying to dispute something, and you were speeding, so you can turn things on and off. But for the demo, I think we'll just leave this on. Actually, I'll turn the GPS off. We don't need to have that showing on it, but I'll leave the speed stamp on. And I'll leave the time and date stamp turned on just for the demo that I'm going to do here. But normally you could have your GPS location stamped on it as well. I'm sure it comes up on the screen with the coordinates. That way you could prove where you were when the recording was made. I like to use these actually to do recording from the car, and especially if it's good quality. And so in those cases, I like to turn off that information because I don't want it on a video that I might be using for something other than for video evidence. So I'll leave the speed and the date timestamp turned on for the demo. And I guess that's rotate display. That's so that if you have the camera upside down, if you've got it facing the other way. Time lapse. You can actually use this to create a time-lapse video where it'll take a picture every second, every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, or record video. Power off delay, and that I guess is about it. Yes, that's all that's in the camera setup. And files, you can select your event files, your normal files, your photos, and all. That's for playback. And those are the settings. So we're going to turn the camera off now. I'm going to load my SD card in the camera. We'll take it into the car. I'll put the mount on it here. I think it just clips on here somehow. Probably like this. Clips on like that. Suction cup mount. You mount it up in the window, then you can adjust it. I'm going to go and put my 32 gig SD card in here, plug it into my cigarette lighter, and I'm going to be driving around with this thing mounted in my car for the next couple days, and we'll do some recording with it, and then we'll compare it to my existing camera. So here I'm just going to install a 32 gig SD card. Just pops into the right side. And there's of course a stop button on top here for, I think that takes a snapshot. We'll play around with that. I'm going to power it up. I'm going to format the memory card. So go to System Setup, Format SD Card. It says all data will be deleted. Yep, that's okay. So the SD card is formatted. Let's take this thing out into the car and see what it does. Silly me, I had the audio turned off on the camera, but I've done some recording during the morning hours, afternoon hours, evening hours, and nighttime. So this is morning driving with a nice clear sky, and I'm going to show you this video first. I did do some recording. I did a sample recording using the built-in microphone on the camera. So let's just take a listen to that. I recorded it after the fact in the house, but let's take a listen to what the sound from the camera sounds like, because it's actually not bad. Well, one thing I've noticed is that the parking mode, if the parking mode is activated, the camera is off, but all you have to do is literally breathe on it and it will spring to life and start recording. This audio that I'm recording now is actually audio recorded on the camera. So as you hear, the sound off the camera itself is actually not bad. For a dash cam, it actually sounds pretty good, because some of them sound just horrible, which I will let you look at the picture next. We're going to look at the same shot that was done with my ojocam 0801, which is about a 5-year-old camera, which is to me is one of the best that I've used. So this is a good example. I'm going to run the same clip from the ojocam so that you guys can see the difference in the quality, and I'll try and run the same clips. Well, I will run the same clips shot at the same time with the same exposure, so that we can look at the difference between the two. But as I say, this one here, this is a bright sun, morning sun. The sun is behind me because I'm going west now, so this is pretty much the best lighting conditions you're going to get for filming. So now let's take a look at the same shot that was done with my existing dash cam. So here we have the same shot from the ojocam 0801, and again, this dash camera I've had since I think I put this in my car in 2014. I think it's 4 or 5 years old. I think 2013 maybe, when this one first came out, and I've had this one in my car ever since. This is the camera I do all my time-lapse stuff that's shot in 1080 is done with this camera, because I find that this one just performs flawlessly, and it has since day one. So I use this as my reference. Let's take a look at the same shot. We'll sync them up and we'll show you the split screen to see how they look. So now we're looking at a split screen here, the ojocam on the left, and the new one, the N1 Pro by Vantrue, is on the right. Immediately you notice that the color saturation is much greater on the Vantrue. It actually is a very good picture. The sky looks really blue, and it almost looks a little too blue, but it's good. I mean, as you can see here, the picture quality, both of them have an excellent picture, much better than some of the other cameras that I've certainly tried in the past, and I certainly wouldn't be complaining about the picture quality on this one. We can read license plates, and we can see the good saturation. Almost looks a little better on the new camera, which would be expected, because newer camera actually should deliver a better picture than the older ones. Better processor, better image sensor. Let's take a look at some shots that were recorded a little bit later on in the afternoon and see how they look. So now we're recording mid-afternoon. It's around 4 o'clock in the afternoon now, and this is the Vantrue camera again. You'll see that it's a good, accurate color. You can read license plates. You can read the street name clearly on the picture. And in a moment here, I'm going to switch back to the other camera just so you can see the difference between the two of them. And then again, we'll do a split screen. So here's the older ojocam here. Again, yeah, very good, but I think the new camera actually is holding up very well, and I think it's actually surpassing what I consider to be one of the best dash cameras that I've used. And it's certainly better than most of the cameras that this one is certainly better than most of the cameras I've reviewed in the past. Let's go back and take a look at the Vantrue. As you can see, detail is there. I think the colors are more vibrant. I think it's pretty obvious to see that. Let's put a split screen up and just take a look at both of them at the same time as we're traveling under this lighting condition. And once again, with the split screen, I think it's pretty obvious. The greens are certainly much more vibrant. The color is more vibrant on the new camera, and I think the detail is there. There's certainly no problem with the detail on this camera. I like it. It's got a very wide field of view as well, so it'll see everything out the windshield, including half the dash of my car. It's got about 170 degree field of view, so it's going to capture everything out the front window. Nice thing about this is it's adjustable, right? Whereas my ojocam, it's stuck to the window and I really can't adjust it. It's starting to droop a bit because the plastic bracket that it mounts on is actually starting to wear out from removing and replacing the camera all the time to change the memory card. So this one here, you can adjust the position of it, and with the size of the lens on the front, it would even be possible to put a little ND filter on there because it's got a good size round lens that you could put an ND filter over if needed. But as you can see, it's handling contrast very well, and yeah, I have no issues with the picture under daylight conditions. Now, one thing I did notice is that the speed at the bottom of the screen is not showing my speed. I don't know why. I did have it turned on, and I think the GPS I have turned on it. I don't know whether the camera that I've got has a functioning GPS or whether one of my menu settings was incorrect. You may have to have the GPS coordinates turned on in order for that to display the time, but for whatever reason it's just showing my speed at 0. But although if I'm using this camera, I'm not going to have the display on anyway. I'm going to have that turned off because I find it it's an annoyance on the screen, and well, it might work against you, especially if you're trying to dispute a ticket and you've got the speed on there. It could work for you or it could work against you. Anyway, that's the daytime view of the Vantrue. The next shot we're going to look at will be Twilight, and then we're going to look at total darkness. So let's take a look at the Twilight shots now. So here's a split screen. It's about 8:30 at night. As you can see, both cameras are performing really quite well. The older camera doesn't have quite as much contrast, but other than that, they both have a very good picture. But the Vantrue is certainly delivering a very good picture. As you can see here, we'll switch back and forth between the two. So let's kill the split screen here, and now look at the Vantrue N1 Pro on full screen. As you can see, even the car headlights coming the other way are not bothering the camera. It's actually looking very good. And here's the other camera, my older version. To say it also has a very good picture on it. That's why I've been using this one over the years as my reference. And every time I look at a new dash camera, I always compare it to this one because I know how this one looks. But it's handling, the contrast is handled quite well on this, although it is a little more subtle. The N1 certainly wins in the contrast and the saturation department, as can be seen here as I switch back to the new N1 Pro in twilight conditions. So next we're going to look at total darkness. I'm going to let this play just for a bit because I'm going to drive into the sun momentarily here. We'll take a look at how it looks going into the sun, and then we're going to look at it in total darkness. So as I round the corner here, this is extreme high contrast. As you can see, it's a little bit the detail's a little bit lost there because of the brightness of the sky. This is the new N1 Pro. We're going to look at that same shot with my old camera, and as you can see, I think the older camera actually handled this situation a little bit better because it doesn't have quite the contrast ratio. Both of them are very good though. Let's go down to where the sunset is and go right into the sun and see how the camera handles that. So once again, a split screen, driving up main drag, same time in sync with each other. It's actually quite easy to get in sync because both these cameras are recording a 5-minute loop file. So it's the files, I started the cameras at the same time, and the files are approximately the same length. It's really quite easy to sync these things up. But here's again a split screen shot. I think in this case the older camera is actually performing a little bit better. There's more detail in the shadows. It seems to be a bit lost on the N1 Pro. It looks to be a little bit too contrasty. You might lose something in that shadow detail there, whereas the older camera actually, I think, is performing better in this particular lighting condition. But they're very close, as you can see, as we continue to head down in towards the sun and it's now getting to be almost totally dark. The sun's about to go down here. It's about right now it's about 10 to 9, I guess, and the sun is just on the horizon. It's just dropping in behind the trees. I'm hoping I'm going to get a shot of it here so that we can see it. As you can see, both cameras are actually handling this lighting condition fairly well. Let's move ahead a few hours. Actually, let's move back a few hours, because I actually shot the following video at about midnight last night when it was totally dark. So let's see how these cameras perform under the darkest of conditions. So what we're going to look at now, this is my older ojocam, which is not as good a performer in low light because it's 5 years old. So let's take a look at this. There's going to be a family of raccoons that are going to run across the road in front of me. There's how it looks on the ojocam. Okay, now let's take a look at the same shot. This is off of the N1 Pro. And yeah, flick the high beams there, but yeah, everything shows up perfect. So we're going to close this video off just looking at some nighttime shots done with the Vantrue N1 Pro. I don't need to, I got to mail a letter here, so I'm going to pull over to the mailbox, but I don't need to show the other camera anymore because it just doesn't perform that well in low light. As you can see, the low light performance of the N1 Pro is actually very good. I'm going to move ahead a bit here, and we're going to go down. This is a local street that has the old high pressure sodium lights. Let's move up to the main drag, and I'm going to go around some of the other residential areas which have got the new LED lights, and we'll see how it performs under different lighting conditions in the dark. So here I'm driving up the main drag. This area here is quite well lit, and as you can see, my window is dirty. I should have washed the window before shooting this. Actually, my windshield isn't that dirty, but there's some dust and stuff on it that is certainly showing up in the lights. But here we are driving down the main part of town. This is actually quite bright, this area here, so I would expect this to look good. We're going to go into some really dark areas coming up here shortly. I'm just going to take a drive up, and as you can see, you can still read the street signs very clearly even in the dark, which is a real plus for a dash cam, because you want that detail, and this thing certainly is performing as expected. I'm just going to take a drive up a street with the new LED street lights and see how they look. Unfortunately, I didn't have the sound turned on the camera when I was recording this. There's a button on the front that you can disable the mic. I had the sound turned on, but I had the mic disabled. You press the, I think it's the up arrow button when it's turned on, and that'll either turn on or turn off the microphone. There's actually a little button on top of the camera as well that if you press it, it looks like a shutter release on a regular camera. What it does is it records a snapshot. So if you want to take a picture while it's recording, you can just hit that button on top of the camera, and it'll actually take a picture and store it as a JPEG in a separate folder. How the camera operates is there's two folders. There's a recorder, a video folder, and there's a protected folder. And depending on the settings of the G-force sensor, I had it set to medium, and I found that if I applied the brakes or accelerated over a certain rate, it would actually put the video file in that folder, which is kind of nice, because then any events, if you have to swerve or hit the brakes or make a maneuver to avoid a collision, the file that was being recorded when that event happened is saved in a separate folder. that will not get overwritten when the card overwrites the existing files. So which is kind of neat. My other camera does the same thing. However, the G sensor it's a much more requires much more force to trigger that, and then it locks a file. This one here, when I had it set to medium, it was putting files in the protected folder quite a bit. Quite a few of the files, every other file basically, was placed into the protected folder. But it did the job quite well. I'm now going to head down to the new shopping mall. We'll take a drive through the parking lot there, and then I'm going to go onto some streets that have no street lights, and we'll see how it looks with just the car headlights. As you can see, there's no street lights here at all. The only lights is from the headlights on the car, but this camera's picking everything up. Everything that I can see and beyond is being picked up by the Vantrue N1 Pro dash cam. Great little unit. I say I've been playing around with it now for a couple days, and I put the parking mode on just to try it out, and literally, if anybody even touches the car, if they pull your door handles, the camera turns on, which might not get, if someone backs into your car, it might not catch them backing into your car, but it will certainly catch them driving away and capture their license plate. Of course, it's got to be looking in the right direction. As I mentioned before, the camera records in 1, 3, or 5 minute segments, and then moves on to the next file. We just transitioned from one file to the next, and I put the files together, and there's no drop frames. When one file ends, the next file starts on the next frame. So as I've been putting this together, there hasn't been any overlap, there hasn't been any stutter between one file and the next. It works as it should. I'm just going to finish this off. I'm going to take a drive down another dark street, and we're going to finish this video off. Link to this camera is in the description. It came from Amazon, so you get the full Amazon money back guarantee if you're not happy. I think you'll be happy with this camera. I certainly am. It is going to be put in one of my vehicles. I don't know that I'll be putting it in my car because I've still got my ojocam mounted in the window, but this is definitely going to be going into one of the vehicles that I have, because I think that everybody should have a dash cam. It really will protect you if you're in an accident. It'll prove who was at fault and who wasn't. And as we've been seeing lately on the news, it'll even help try to solve some road rage incidents or incidents on the road. We've all seen the dash cam footage as of late, and I think we're going to see a lot more people put cameras in their car. It's a good idea to have. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again in the next one real soon. Bye for now.